Like I said, I was secretary a couple years for home and school and did bingo
Oh, yes.
and was in the choir for a few years, and then that sort of all changed. New director came in and changed things. And recently, I'm now a member of the parish activity committee. So pretty much have sort of kept my hands in something along the way.
What have you enjoyed the most about the activities you've been involved in?
I think it's just the parish coming together. It just seems like any type of thing that we have, the people that come always say how much they enjoy it. I think that, like, the hospitality Sundays is a big positive thing where people come and they can meet new people, new members can talk with other people and find out likes and dislikes. I think some of our dinners that we've had have been a real success. So
Yeah, I think one of the smartest things we did was when we decided we were going to build a church, tear down the rectory, and we looked at the cost. I think it was going to be like $5 million, and we knew we couldn't raise that. So we put the gathering area up, and people stay after mass now. I mean, we'll go home and I'll still see cars pulling out a lot, and we might stay for 45 minutes after. So if you remember the old entrance before the gathering area, we had to go through the school entrance there, and you couldn't put any displays up or anything like that. It was like a cattle chute. So I think what I enjoy now is just after mass, especially if the priests stay out there, and talk to him, especially like Father Steve and our brother Deacon Steve, Father Pat. So that's one thing I'm glad we did.
Okay. Tell me about a time when you were excited about a ministry and another time when you may have been discouraged.
RCIA comes to mind. The first one we had the pastoral associate, Alice. And so it was a regular Saturday ritual. We had to go over there a couple hours and we do Bible readings and just discuss stuff. That was our first involvement. And then several years later, we got asked to be involved again.
that was with Judy Wargen.
Judy, and she's a full-time liturgist and she's got to do this. She just didn't have the time. So a lot of times it was half hour before Mass or something like that. So it was really, we just didn't feel that involved. It was kind of like, oh, okay, we're here. I mean, before it was in depth.
And I also think that we had a brother and sister that we mentored, and I think I don't think they learned enough about the faith. I think their mother was Catholic, but there was a divorce, and they were not raised as anything. So I think there were a lot of questions that really didn't get answered. I don't think there was enough in-depth thing. I don't know about the sister, whether she goes to church or not anymore, because I don't know if she's even in the area. But I think he does. Actually, I think it's Mike Borowski who is heading up the pop-up beer garden thing. So, but yeah,
the contrast between the two, and it wasn't Judy's fault. She just didn't have the time. Whereas Alice, that was her ministry.
And that was the other thing. She was the one that ran it. There weren't not a lot of other people that were involved with it. I just remember our Saturday morning thing, or it was some afternoon. So there were a few Saturday mornings, but when Alice had it, it was a commitment. If you said you were going to do this, it was every Saturday that you had to be there. So I thought, but now, although not having been involved, but you are, I think there's a much better.
I think we still have the situation where the staff member doesn't necessarily have a lot of time to put to it because she has a lot of other things on the plate. So the rest of the team has had to step in not that it's a problem, it's an opportunity, right?
Mhm.
So the rest of the team has had to step in and help out with teaching some of the materials. And so that has been an opportunity for us. I view that as a positive.
Mhm. Yeah, I think as far as not being involved in it right now, but I just see that it seems to be a much more positive outlook.
Okay, so that would be the thing that had you discouraged?
The
Was that
second-
the
the
answer?
I
second-
think the second time we did it, yes. Yeah.
And the first time is when you were excited.
Oh,
Correct,
yeah,
yes. Mhm.
Okay. How has the involvement of the laity in the parish changed over the years?
Well, first of all, I think Eucharistic ministers.
Yes.
That was unheard of, and especially to have a woman, or for even as a reader or anything like that. I think that's a huge difference, because it was always supposed to be male. It was, but
Yeah, having brought up in Catholic school, I was a server. Of course, in those days you had to respond in Latin. But the thing that was a mind change, or just awesome to me, was when we would get the sacred vessels, we had to have a cloth. We were not allowed to touch the sacred vessels because we weren't ordained. And even the nuns, I think they had to use cloths too, not gloves, but cloths. So to be able to actually, the only time they would get wine was at a wedding. The bride and groom would get it, and that would be it. You never got wine. And the other thing was communion. You never. They put it on your tongue. They didn't want you to handle it because they said people would take it home and put it in the. Then it would deteriorate, stuff like that. So yeah, those are, like you say, the ministers of the cup and bread. Now, you just wonder if that's ever going to come back.
well, the bread, I think because we have some at St. Matthew's, but yeah, the wine, I don't know if that'll ever, because of COVID, whether that'll come back or not.
I hope so. I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, and it's more involvement. You see people stepping forward, like lectors too. I see we got some new faces in there too.
Okay. Who was the most influential person in your faith development at St. Matt's?
Father Don for me.
Why?
Because he changed the whole relationship. Before the priests were kind of in a world by themselves, kind of not so much standoffish. Well, I guess the first couple ones we didn't know, we were new. But Don just was, he'd come over and have a beer. So we'd sit down and play cards. We'd get together. You want to go golf? And I'm off Wednesday. Let's go. It was a bunch of us. It wasn't just me. It was a bunch of the people that were involved. So he was approachable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about which.
I would think maybe Sister Caroline Yeager. And
forgot about that.
Same thing. To this day, we're still good friends. I mean, she's come when she was, her order sent her to Iowa. When she would come back to town here, I mean, she'd come and stay at our house. But there was always that faith connection. It wasn't just the friend, but it was just. But she was a religious person. And I think another thing was, I think our kids learned that these people are approachable. It used to be, I just remember in grade school, I thought, oh my God, these nuns were like on pedestals or the priest or something. They just weren't approachable. You didn't think of them as human beings, I guess you'd almost say. Where nowadays, I think kids, if they have access to like Father Pat or Father Don or a nun of, well, not too many nuns around here anymore, but I think they're a little more approachable, and they if they've got questions as far as a religious life or something, they're there to answer. I think that made a big difference. Also, she was very instrumental in our group from St. Matthew's to go to Guatemala, because that was her order that is running the orphanage there. And that was a really good experience to go there with her as a group from St. Matthew's, and still keep in contact with some of the nuns there. So I think she'd probably be the one that would made the biggest impression on me, as for somebody that had been at St. Matthew's.
Okay. Are there any pastors or other staff members you recall having specific personality quirks or that you can share?
We had one pastor that if you distributed communion, you had to keep looking, because he tried to get to the exact number or the amount of hosts he would put in, and usually he underestimated. Now Tom Nafta, when he wasn't looking, he would grab a bunch more hosts and throw them in there, because he didn't. Well, we ended up breaking. He ended up breaking hosts, so that was just.
I think of an associate pastor that he had a very short fuse.
Oh yes.
And you could just see if something didn't go, it would start, and the red would just come up like that, and it would just, then he would just blow, and it was just.
Yeah, there's a story about him, and he had to go to home and school meetings, and there was an issue on could they wear hoodies or not, and it came up, and finally he just said, make a decision, yes or no, it's not that. But yeah, he had a short fuse.
Short fuse.
He was very, well, Rick was another one that
Father Rick's, yes,
had a big influence on us. Stoffel.
Yeah.
He had a barrel-chested laugh. In fact, he used to work at a brewery when he went to St. Francis.
Really?
But he was good with the kids. They got along with him.
All right. What about significant events in the history of the parish, good and bad?
The church festivals were always
Yes.
fun, and being involved with some of that. I think those were good until it got to the point where it just was not feasible to do them anymore because of costs and stuff like that. But that was one thing that we always look forward to.
I'm going back to the school again. I remember when our revenue sources were way down, and the school was, well, first of all, they wouldn't raise their tuition because just can't do that. Told me better. We got to a point where we had to have a parish meeting, and we had three options. One, shut 7th and 8th grade down. 2, shut the school down. 3, have a capital, or not a capital campaign, but a fundraising campaign. And everybody opted for number 3, and actually the Home and School Association, they come up with about 20 volunteers, and we contacted everybody, did mailings, and when that was all, when all the mailings and stuff were done, and we still hadn't heard from people, we went door to door. No, I don't go there anymore. Oh, good. We'll just take you off the roster then. And that meant, like, you don't get a funeral here. Your little kid isn't getting married here because you're not a member. And so that we raised enough. We got a significant increase where we were pretty good for the next couple of years. So, but that was close the school. What are we going to do with this building?
Right. When was that? Do you recall the year approximately?
I would probably the late 70s, I would say.
Yeah,
or
because
early 80s.
his father Silcook was here, so it would have been after Don, 86. So
Oh, Mike,
Father Don died in 86.
I know, but well, maybe it was the 80s then.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was more like.
Well, I got the.
Oh, I guess it is right. It would be Father Joe. Right, you're right. So probably in the 80s, but I think since then, it's been. The parish has been very good about supporting the school.
Oh yeah. Well, and in fact, the school has been very forthcoming. When we did the parking lot, they chipped in, I don't know, 25,000, I think, so, something like
I
that.
think
So,
all organizations.
so
did, yeah.
even today now, if they fall short on their tuition, they'll make up the difference. Well, it's not a problem anymore because of choice and in large enrollment. So
I think another thing, positive thing, was the restoration of the little brick church. You know, that was,
And when was that?
82, 92, is it? It was a
well,
10-year
Father
project.
Rick was the one that, when he was here, he was the one that started it. He wanted that, because that was just, it was just used like as a storage shed. Just everything was just thrown in there. And he was the one that wanted to see it. I don't remember the exact year.
No,
Probably have to go back and
I've
look,
got
but
the
it's
book.
got to be in the 80s.
Yeah. But that was another way you got involved too, is the fish well. We didn't work the fish well, but we would go over to what do they have in September? Labor at the VFW. What
The Labor Day?
yeah, Labor Day weekend. We were over there. Somebody donated a cow or a calf, so we would go over there and sell raffle tickets, stuff like that. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we were part of a group that did that.
Was that
so.
for the Little Brick Church?
Yeah,
Restoration?
restoration. Yeah,
Restoration. Yeah.
um,
And then I think that's how the fish boil started. That was money that was being raised for the restoration of the little brick church. And I think almost it was a parish member at the time, David Gass, who did all of the paintings and stuff in there. And it was I don't know if there was any outside help. I think everything that was done in there was all volunteer work from parishioners.
Glubkas, Milkies, there were so many people that were involved. I think Bud Supernut might even been in there. But there was a whole cadre that ripped everything out, sent the pews out to get rebuilt or restored, tore down the ceiling, I think professionally they had it replastered. But yeah, then they put the wooden flooring in. I mean, it's kind of like when we configured the church. It was just a group of people showed up that, okay, what do you need? What do you need? I don't want to sign up for any committee, was basically the response. I don't want to be in a committee, but if you need help, call me. And there was a whole bunch like that. So and Dan he's got another list like that too. All he's got to do is send out an email, and he's got a bunch of people there.
That's cool. Okay, we talked about the difficult, challenging time relative to the school. Or were there others challenging times that you can recall?
Well, the most recent would be COVID, but we lost 30% of our parishioners, I think. They're starting to come back now, but revenue-wise, it was quite a strain there for a while. And I think what else we had, it sometimes when things are going good, it clouds the memory. You don't remember bad times, because right now it seems to be going very good. We gotta.
Yeah, I can't say that that I can remember a bad time or I mean, obviously we weren't there like during the Depression or anything like that. So, but it just seems St. Matthew's has always been a very
resilient. Maybe?
Resilient is a good word. Yeah, parish. If something does seem to be, hey, we're in dire straits for this, people are going to step up and make sure things are taken care of.
Okay. Do you have any specific memories from, I don't know, war times, 9/11 or COVID? Maybe most recently COVID, obviously.
I think the biggest thing was not being able to go to church, not having mass. I mean, you could watch it on TV, but it was not the same. You just did not have that that feeling of being there with the Lord. To me, that was a very, very difficult time.
Or the Eucharist itself.
Or the Eucharist itself.
That was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Very difficult. So.
Yes, same here, yeah.
Okay. What differences have you noted from pre-Vatican II? Were you here during pre-Vatican II?
No,
No.
not at St. Matthew's.
Okay. Well, what about in general in the church as a whole? Pre-Vatican II to post-Vatican II?
Well, first of all, the Mass is now in English, where it was in Latin. The altars changed, turned around. I think receiving communion, the prayers, just everything is. I don't think the young generation will ever understand what that was like. I mean, you just didn't. I don't think I did. I guess my thought is, I didn't feel as a part of the Mass as I do now.
Yeah.
Where before it was the priest up there on the altar, and he was turned around. You didn't see him. To me, I think now with things in English, and you feel more part of the Mass as opposed to pre-Vatican.
Sure. As a server, we did the responses for the congregation because it was in Latin, and there was times that if it was like a late Mass, you had to fast from midnight on. You couldn't have anything to eat or drink. And there was times when the priest would just kind of lean over the servers, anybody coming up for communion. And you'd turn around and look, nobody would, because maybe it was a new Mass, or maybe you'd have one little old lady coming up there. So you got one, Father? But yeah, and then
You didn't eat on Friday.
Yes. Well, the other thing was, as a teenager, we would go out, order pizza, and say, "Can you hold it till 12?" And the Protestants used to laugh at us. You guys, stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, no meat on Fridays, and the fasting was the hard part. If you were going to a late Mass. Well, I think Christmas they waived it. What was it, 3 hour? Yeah, it was a 3 hour one. From 9 o'clock on, you couldn't have any meat. Now I think it's roughly an hour. I think they use. So, yeah, those were changes that people could never. Well, holy days, holy day of obligation. Well, I can remember when the stores closed at 12 o'clock on Good Friday.
On Good Friday.
And 3 o'clock. I also remember when taverns couldn't open till the polls were closed.
Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the church buildings. What were they like when you first joined, and how is that different from how they are today?
Well, they took the communion railing down.
Yeah, the communion rail went down. The organ
We moved up.
used to be in the back of the church. So
Corral.
if there wasn't even a choir at that time. They would have a cantor and someone played the organ. And obviously this long thing, and then obviously the altar is where the side pews are now.
Yeah, we moved the organ up, and then we built a stand. When they started the choir, we built a stand as you walk in. It was on the opposite of where the choir is now, on the opposite side.
On the other side.
Buildings themselves.
Well, the old hall is gone,
Mhm.
and that was a big part of the parish. I mean, there was that's where the kids had gym.
Yeah.
When they weren't outside.
And daycare.
And there was daycare. We used to have a what do you call it? A food pantry.
Yeah.
And stuff that used to be held over there. I think there were a dart ball was always held there. So there were a lot of activities that went on in
dances
there.
and
Yeah, there were used to have dances in there. And
Do you remember when it came down, the old hall?
92.
92?
92 when
when we built it.
when they built the,
What happened was, we needed parking. The code required, a stall for every 2.5 people. So you figure out what your capacity of the church was and divided that by 2.5, and then you had to have a stall, so we had to get rid of the building.
that's when the gathering space was built. And then at that time, they were talking about the rectory was gonna come down, and that's where the church was going to be. But then that sort of,
Oh, we couldn't afford. The other thing is we
Didn't
had
happen.
2 garages. We had, for the nuns, they had their station wagon so they could go shopping and stuff, and
those were down
and
below.
then they stored the athletic equipment in there and the fish broil equipment in there. And that's when Zapp and that committee decided to build that garage. And then that's another case where you just had people show up, put them to work, and then after the garage, they put the pavilion up. Again, that was all volunteers up there. I think we had somebody pour the cement. But other than that, Mark Zapp kind of directed that, so, yeah. And then the latest is what, Columbarium. I guess you'd call that a building. It's gonna be our house later on.
It's gonna be mine, I know
Yeah,
that.
and ours too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In remodeling in there,
This-
again, another group of volunteers, we took all the old ceiling stuff down and we put in grid work, put in insulation, put new ceiling
In the
in the school itself.
itself. I don't think the inside has changed that much, other than the south wing where the nuns used to live. Once they finally left, that was turned into offices and stuff. But I don't think the inside of the actual school itself has really changed much.
The inside of the church was reconfigured.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was about, I'm saying 90, no,
Well, Father Bill was here when that was done.
yeah, I'm trying to think what was it, 2002, the cornerstone for the gathering area? So it
Something
must
like
have been
that.
about 2 or 3 years later than Ed Sira, I think it was laid out between Tom Snyder and Ed Sira and some committee input. They wanted to configure it, and he laid it out, and so all we did was follow his markings, put the pews in. And I think we would never go back to that straight row of benches there. 40, no, I forget how many there were.
I don't remember.
But I do remember the comment was the furthest seat from the altar, it was halfway in the old configuration. So if you sat halfway back in the church, you would be at the last row of this new configuration. So everybody's closer.
That's good. And most recently, not that I'm prompting you, but all of the technology, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. We are state of the art. They just finished putting a fiber cable in to upgrade well, they don't even have a computer room anymore. I forget what they call it, but they don't. Everybody's got a Chromebook now, and there's Wi-Fi all over the place. So we are state of the art. I think, and then with this bequest, they rebuilt the sound system in the church, put all that in, and then just recently with all the video stuff. So we're in a position to stream. I don't think Pat is quite ready for that yet. I think he wants him here.
We'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
When you think about St. Matthew's future, what excites you the most and what concerns you?
I tell you what concerns me is if we lose Pat, Father Pat. I just think he has been the guy that's really got it all together and keep going. I think it was a process of improving the parish. Not that the parish was bad, but bringing it into the modern era. And I think he got there at the right time. And if we lose his enthusiasm and energy, he's going to be hard to replace. I'm not saying they can't, but I think we will dearly miss him. That's my concern. Future, I'm hoping the principal's replacement, and they think she's gonna be as good as Kelly is now. Cause you could just see the school, the involvement, the kids are involved, just the way it is. It's kinda like Dorothy Carell kinda like started it. You had the kids going to the nursing home and, all this kind of stuff, and it just keeps growing. They got so many projects going now that it's all about parish, so that's what I'm excited about.
I don't know if I have a concern. I guess that would be my biggest concern is if we would have, well, I know we will eventually lose Father Pat. I can't imagine him staying here for another 15 years. But you need to have somebody that's young and enthusiastic to keep things going and keep things up to date and stuff like that. I think that would be my biggest concern. That something, even the people that are involved in a lot of things now, hopefully we're seeing younger people getting involved, where before it was always the same people that did everything. And I think now they're willing to get involved in different projects.
Yeah, as a trustee, when I'm on council meetings, these committee reports, it's kind of like, oh, we're doing that. Oh, it takes sometimes a half an hour to get through the committee reports on activities that are going on. So, to me, that's exciting. That it's not like, oh, we had a meeting and no, we're looking at this, we're doing this, and we're doing that. I think, we always hear people are too busy to do things, but we got some people that are really involved there. They bring that enthusiasm in there, and I hope we can keep that going.
Okay. Kind of along the same lines, what would you like to remain the same, and what would you like to see change at St. Matthew?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Well, one thing I do like is the 3 homilists. They all bring a different insight to them, and you just get John brings you up to date. He's a sports thing. He's going to relate to that. Steve is going to tell you the history, and Father's going to tell you why. It's such a contrast. It's a contrast. You just say, oh, okay, we're going to be doing this, and people are paying attention. They're all looking. So I enjoy that.
I really don't have anything I can think of offhand that I would want changed or be worried about. Maybe just hopefully that people still stay involved. I think that the dynamics of the parish is very good right now. I'd be a little concerned if all of a sudden you didn't have that involvement.
What else should I be asking you that I have not asked you?
Go ahead.
I mean, or is there any areas we have not touched on?
I don't think so. What about you, Mike?
Well, I don't know how to. Well, let me put it this way. When we look up a name in the school book or the church book, we have a lot of single persons, widows, widowers, and I just wonder if there's any way to reach out to them. I see like, we see like 3 or 4 people every Sunday in church. They're a widow or a widower, and it's just, you kind of feel like, hopefully you got kids around or something like that.
What are you thinking, like a group or?
If there's, and maybe they wouldn't want to be involved or anything, but somehow you gotta reach out to them somehow. I don't have any ideas on it. When I see them in there, I just think, because our next door neighbor is a widower for 10 years now, and I know every once in a while we used to sit out and have a beer, and he'd say, "I'm so lonely," and you feel there's got to be parish members that are in the same situation. So somehow we got to acknowledge them or somehow do something, reach out to them. I don't have any concrete suggestions.
Well, we do have as part of the PAT team is trying to do things with seniors. That's just sort of getting the ball rolling on that. But then the other problem with that is if you take trips someplace, cost-wise, it's you have to figure on something that you could do at the parish. We try to, before a mass last summer, just having a get-together where they could play cards and talk and things like that, and it went okay. The other one that we did was for seniors was to have Beth Ruthmansdorfer come and talk about wills and taxes and things like that. That was very well received, and that was whether you were a couple or single. But yeah, I think the two groups I think that really need to have something for them would be, like Mike said, for the widow and widowers, and also I think for our young people after they're confirmed. There's nothing after that.
Yeah,
and that's part. If you don't have stuff that are going to keep them in church, you're losing that whole generation. They're just not, unless they get married and then they have kids, and if they want to have them baptized or something, but they're not going to be involved as much as we all were.
Agreed. Okay, coming to the end here. Do you have suggestions on whom else we should interview?
Well, have you done the Weisses?
Not yet.
Either one of them. John or Joe.
Or collectively.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who else? Golly, I'm trying to think of.
Well, Schrader would be one too, but she's fallen a couple of times. But you could do an in-home one. She would probably have a wealth of knowledge because she was a secretary for years,
and she probably would have a lot of information.
And she was an organist too. So
that's the whole problem. So many of them have passed away that would have that information.
Milky might be one.
What's her name on Ryan Road?
Oh, Teresa
Agabashian.
Well, let's, if you think of others, reach
Sure.
out. I think some of these are already on our hit list.
Yeah.
But reach out. Feel free if you think of others. And then lastly, do you have any photos you'd be willing to share? And I can cut this off and you can just share them.
Okay.
If you want.
I would have to go through some stuff at home upstairs, and they're in boxes that I'd have, like different.
Mine are all in the computer. I didn't print them out in my
That's
color.
fine.
But if you want to look through some of these, this is a reconfiguration. There's a couple there. Oh, and I brought something else that you might be interested in. And you remember these? Oh, this is a bulletin, but
St. Matthew's Buzz, the newspaper.
we used to do that, and there's some nice articles in there, or pictures in there. You can look at them if you want.
Okay. I'm gonna cut this. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I gotta go.